to leave shed having side yard of 0.4 feet instead of required 2 feet, and to install driveway on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet. Residence B District, east side of Gerard Avenue, 80 feet south of Bay Bright Court.
Good evening, Board. My name is Ken Gordon. I'm here to represent Cynthia Kramer, my daughter, first-time home buyer for 57
One
Gerard.
second, if you could please state your address for this stenographer.
My address is, I'm sorry, Secretog Lane, 262 Secretog Lane, West Islip. Gordon, Gordon.
Thank you.
So I'm here to represent Cynthia Kramer, who just purchased a house on 57 Gerard Avenue in Bay Shore.
On the driveway, is the driveway going to be on the property line or is it going to be set back?
We want to extend the driveway closer to the bush line so we can allow for additional parking for the accessory apartment.
And right now, the bushes will remain there?
Well, the bushes are totally on our property at this point.
Yeah.
We want to try to keep as much of the bushes as we can there as the divider between us and the neighbor. But we'll probably have to take some of it away just so we can extend the driveway a little closer to the bushes.
The bushes are about 2.5 feet wide?
No, the bushes are like 6 feet wide from the property line. But most of the bushes are going to remain there. That was the intent. So if I brought the driveway right up to like the hedge line, we'll be able to accommodate, 4 parking spots in the driveway.
So you'll bring it 4 feet off of the property line?
Yes, sir.
No closer?
Well, 4 feet, yeah, that's probably where it would wind up being.
Yeah, because we were a little confused because you showed it clearly that you were going to hold 4 feet, but the zoning denial came with it asking for the driveway to be on the property line.
Oh, really? To bring it
Yeah.
all? I don't know if it's necessary because we have plenty of footage from the left side. I don't think there's any reason to go any further. I'd rather leave the bushes there.
Okay, so let's strike that from the call of the meeting.
Sorry for the confusion on
That's
that.
okay. Motion to amend on that?
Yep.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any other questions from the board? Or from the planning? No. Is anyone else would like to be heard on this application? Sir, if you could just let him use the podium.
You want to put the driveway where the existing driveway is now, or you want to create a new driveway on the north side of the property?
The driveway remains exactly where it is. It just gets extended slightly wider to accommodate 4 vehicles as compared to, it almost fit 4 vehicles now. It just has to go a little wider closer to the hedge line.
That's on the.
Would you,
that's on the-
yeah, would you, hello, excuse me, would you address us rather than asking your own part?
Judge, Your Honor, and Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Larry Gustafson. I represent Angela Gustafson, my mom, who's has a property adjacent to this particular property at issue. I'm just trying to get clarification from the board where this, if it's a new driveway sought to be installed or an existing driveway sought to be widened. That's my inquiry.
So the driveway needs to be widened to accommodate 4 cars that are required pursuant to the accessory apartment ordinance. What the applicant is saying is he's not going to widen so much that he violates the setback requirement of 4 feet, but he is going to widen so that they can accommodate the 4 cars.
All right, I appreciate the clarification. I wasn't sure where the driveway was at issue. My mother has a property that's one house, it's adjacent to the subject property, but north of it on the corner.
Well, why don't we do this, so we have, you know exactly what's going on and we do. Maybe somebody can explain to Mr. Gustafson and us. The driveway is going to be 4 feet from the property line? How, do we know?
Well, we just struck it, we struck
Yeah,
any
struck it
variance.
from the
from-
call.
So the code requires it to be 4 feet. For some reason, in the call, it said on the property line, but they want to be 4 feet in. And what would be the width of the driveway?
I don't have that exact measurement now, but the width of the driveway, if I come 4 feet off, the width of the driveway would be more than enough to
Looks like 17.5.
accommodate.
I'm sorry, I was looking for a number.
17.5, right?
That's the
I don't have that
surveyor's
number with me.
Well, if think it's going to be 12 feet?
No, it's gonna be closer to 18 feet wide.
Got to put the full spot.
You know, it's gonna fit 4 cars, no problem. I don't need to go any closer to the,
Right.
if I understand this, your client's house is north of us, so there's, this
gonna-
driveway is on the south side of the house,
You're
it's
gonna
not
expand
even
it to
near
the
the
south?
house. So it's totally on the opposite side of the house.
It's more important than just any client, it's mother.
Oh, I'm sorry, is it your mom?
I appreciate that.
I didn't know. No, this driveway's on the south side of the house, it's not near your mom's house.
Any other questions?
One other question. Actually, we have no objection to the accessory apartment application, the driveway expansion. But we would want the shed that's also part of the application to be in accordance with the 2-foot setback. It's right pretty much on the property line. But all other aspects of the application, we'd have no objection to.
How long has the shed been there?
We just purchased the house about 4 months ago. 4 months ago, so the shed's been there, I'm not sure how long.
All right.
We were gonna shift the shed further to the back of the yard, more adjacent to, I guess, your mom's garage.
Right.
So if that would be acceptable, it'd be further setback, it'll be, you know, because your mom's garage is literally on the property line.
No, we have no, as long as you put that shed in its proper place, we're gonna be home, we're gonna be neighbors for a long time. We have no objections to the rest of the application, other than the shed being in compliance with the town code.
So if you're going to move the shed, are we going to remove that from the application?
I didn't,
All right.
I was gonna move the shed anyhow, but
Right.
since it, you know, I guess when I applied for it, that was one of the, I didn't even realize it was too close to the property line, so I said, okay, we'll apply for that variance as well. But our plan was to shift it deeper into the yard, so it'd be very close to the neighbor's garage, which,
So you'll move it to a
yeah,
compliant,
move it back, right?
Yeah, back, just off the fence line.
so you'll move it to a compliant location?
The plant is
2
on.
feet off the fence, 2 feet off the property line is the code?
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Great.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Good luck.
Nice, Ken.
And
We're
Larry.
going to clean this up.
Thank you.
Is
too,
there anyone
Mr.
else that would
Chairman.
like to be heard on this application? Please come forward.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Kevin Duddy. My address is 56 Girard Avenue. I'm directly across the street from the applicant location. First thing I want to say is D-U-D-D-Y. First thing I want to say is that Ms. Gordon and Ms. Kramer have been nothing but gracious and accommodating since the time that they purchased this. There is no ill will here at all. These are really very nice people. I'm looking forward to having them as neighbors. I do have an objection to the accessory apartment alteration. It is currently designated a mother-daughter. I don't believe that there are any other accessory apartments in this neighborhood. And when I say neighborhood, I'm describing the area specifically being to the west of the Brightwaters border and east of Gardner Park. It's basically Girard Avenue and a couple of spurs. Currently, as a mother and daughter, it's been like that for 20-plus years, and the previous 2 owners used it exactly as such. I have no objection to the applicants using it for family purposes. I just think that to change it to an accessory apartment alters significantly the nature of the neighborhood.
How? It's the same thing. It's still an apartment within the house.
Because what it does is it moves it from being a family-oriented residence to basically a commercial structure, where you have a residence with an apartment that is the source of income, the source of,
But it's still an apartment within a residence.
it's an apartment in a residence, but it's not family. And that's a
Well,
very different.
family, the Supreme Court has decided is a very tenuous term. It's still it's an apartment within a residence.
It doesn't include strangers, it doesn't include just putting it on the open market
There
to
are
any
some
bidder.
family members that are strangers to one.
And it may be.
I'd rather put an apartment on the open market than rent it to my family.
But there's another issue, and I hear where you're coming from. The other issue is, under this section of the town code, if they meet the parameters, they're entitled to it. There's not a showing they have to make beyond that. It's not as though this is our typical zoning that we compare it to the nature and character of the neighborhood as you raise. If they meet the code, They're entitled to it.
So nobody else has simply asked for it. If anybody asks for it, you're entitled to it if you meet the,
If you meet the code,
I
yes.
didn't know that, honestly. And
You know, now, you may very well not know that there may be other ones in the area that you
Oh,
don't know about.
I have no doubt that there are people who do this illegally, and one of the things that I appreciate is that these folks are trying to come here to do this legally and giving all of the people who are surrounded an opportunity to be heard. But if they're asking for an accessory apartment and the law provides them with the right to do it, what is the point of asking the neighbors what their opinion is?
Well, there were
If
other,
it's-
there were other things on
Yeah, no, I
the
get that.
agenda.
I get that. But the accessory apartment, irrespective of concerns of the neighbors, is to be granted if it otherwise complies with.
Yes.
Right, if they meet the requirements.
If that's consistent with the law, then, I can't have any objection. Again, as I said, they've been wonderful since they moved in, and I want to keep it that way. So I just wanted to voice my concern about changing the nature of the neighborhood, because I do believe it's the only location in this area that would have an accessory apartment. It's not a mother-daughter.
Thank
That's it.
you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this application?
Can I comment, please?
Planning, do you have any comments on it?
No objections to it.
You may not have to comment because it looks like it's going your way.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Is there any more questions from the board? No?
All right, motion to deny that portion of the application regarding leaving a shed with a side yard of 0.4 feet and to grant the balance of the application for a period of 3 years as amended.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Application change.
Thank you very much.
Application number 364-23, Francis Romano. Permission to leave pool house 20.7 by 20.8 with attached pergola having side yard of 4.1 feet instead of required 10 feet, and tennis court having side yard of 3.5 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence AAA District, west side of South Gillette Avenue, 347.14 feet south of Middle Road, Bayport.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Amy DeVito, Woodhull Expediting with offices at 1031 Main Street, Port Jefferson. So we are here to request variance relief for a 20.7 foot by 20.8 foot pool house with a 16 foot by 10 foot attached pergola. The pool house itself is actually 430 square feet. With the attached pergola of 160 square feet, it brings our total to 590. I believe that even though the pergola is completely open, that may be what's triggering the variance that we have before you today, even though the structure itself is actually only 430 square feet. So we are required to provide 10 feet, a 10 feet side yard setback where we are requesting 4 feet. Had the pergola not been attached, from what I understand, the way I read the code, we would actually only have to maintain a 4-foot setback. And maybe Deirdre could clarify that after I finish. So with that said, the pool house has existed since prior to my client's ownership. They purchased in 2004, and based on aerials, it looks like the pool house was erected, or at least the accessory structure, sometime in the late 90s. As far as the tennis court, that was installed in 2020. It was actually a COVID installation so that they can enjoy their backyard a little more during the shutdown. We are just about a half-foot shy on the south side of the property of the required 4-foot setback. There is vegetation around the property, both behind the pool house, on each side, all 3 sides of the tennis court, and there is also a net that could capture any tennis balls from going over to neighboring properties. I do have some oh, you guys already have them. Okay, so that's the photo right there of the pool house with the pergola. And there should be photos of the tennis court. I do have extra copies here if the board would like to see them. And I am happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Deirdre, do you have any comments?
I just wasn't sure, because once you go over the 500 square feet for accessory structures, that's when it goes from a side yard of 4 feet to a side yard of 10 feet. But there is, I believe, also another part of code where if it has certain plumbing in it, that then that pushes it, once you're over 400 feet, you need the side yard of 10 feet, so that's just what I wasn't sure about, because the pool house might have the plumbing in it technically that would make it, even without the pergola, need the 10 feet. But I'm not sure if zoning was counting the pergola for the square footage, even though the pergola is open air and it's not like an enclosed structure. So that's just what I wasn't sure about.
Same here. I wasn't able to locate that part of the code with the
It's a
plumbing.
newer part of code that they just
Okay.
added.
Either way, there is plumbing in the pool house, which is just actually a bar sink and a powder room sink. There actually is no toilet, and it's cold water only, just for clarification. Yes.
Deirdre, what are you concerned about with plumbing? Inside the
Um,
structure or outside on that?
Inside the structure, so I think it might not be that it has, because I think the specific plumbing that pushes it, once it's over 400 square feet to require a 10-foot side yard is more than just the sinks. I think once you put like a toilet in or a fridge or something like that, that might be what pushes it over. I'm not entirely sure. This might just be because technically the square footage is over 500 square feet. The pool house itself, I believe, is 430 square feet.
Correct.
But because it has a pergola attached, that probably pushes it over to 500, even if the pergola is not an actual
So we don't know what's.
roof over that's kind of acting more as like an enclosed space.
Would you agree not to ever enclose that pergola?
Yeah, they would agree to that. It's really just
Not to
decorative.
put a roof on it or enclose it?
Can I ask you, what's to the north of the pool house?
To the north of the pool
You have the
house.
6-foot stockade fence. Who owns the property? Is that the state that owns that, or do you know?
There
The
appears to be a structure on that property and it looks residential. I don't know why it's listed as the state owning it. I actually wondered that myself. I have no idea. It appears to be like every other house in the neighborhood, so unless perhaps the state purchased it and maybe it's some sort of like, for lack of a better word, shelter or something like that, I'm not sure.
No.
No objections.
Anyone else that like to be heard on this application?
I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Dan's will enter.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Good night.
Application number 365-23, Charles and Patricia Margarita. Permission to leave chicken coop having side yard of 1.7 feet instead of required 10 feet. Shed having side yard of 0.4 feet and rear yard of 3.1 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Pond in front yard when only permitted in rear yard. And driveway having side yard of 1.5 feet instead of required 4 feet. Residence B District, north side of East Farmingdale Street, 594 feet east of Belmore Avenue, Islip Terrace.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Margarita, 215 East Farmingdale Street, Islip Terrace, New York. My husband is not well, so he wasn't able to come, so I brought my son.
There's three issues here. My name is Lou Margarita. I reside at 59 South Bay Drive, Babylon, New York. There's three issues. One is the fish pond. It's been there over 30 years. It's 18 inches deep. It's in the front of the yard, like the previous people. So that's one issue they have. The other issue is the shed, which I was speaking to my dad. It's kind of old and it's wood structure. He's going to end up taking that down anyway within the next few months. So I don't know if you want to strike that or the other issue is the chicken coop, which is close to the fence. That's also removable. It's just a fenced cage that can be moved. So I don't know if that requires a variance. He could move that if it's needed.
What brought you here tonight? Did you get any summonses?
Yes, somebody had come to the house, an inspector had come to the house and wrote my parents up for numerous things. There was a pool
So you
there.
have some summonses pending in court?
Did you get summonses or?
No,
No summonses?
no.
The inspector had come to the house for the chicken coop originally. Somebody, I guess, had told about that my dad had some chickens back there.
Okay.
So when the inspector came, he seen they had a pool, which has been up there for years. They took the pool down now, that's gone. He wrote him up for the shed, you know, the old stuff that was there, the air conditioner on the side of the house, I think that's been cleared up. The only real issue I see is there's a concrete on the side of the house there, which is pretty close to the fire.
Which they say is a driveway, but it's just a slab of concrete. We've never used it as a driveway.
So you're saying you're gonna remove the shed, so if we deny that, you'll remove the shed in a reasonable amount of time, correct?
Yes.
And the chicken coop can be moved too, because that seems to be the biggest problem here.
It can be moved. Is it somebody complaining about it or?
I mean, you're telling me that's how someone came to the house, someone complained about something, that's why you have the
And
inspectors
generally
there.
with these issues, and only one of these things really usually generates a complaint,
And I would guess,
it's not the shed.
if I had to guess, it would be the chicken
What
coop.
is the variance that it
It has to be 10 feet.
And currently it's 1.7 feet.
Can you give them a little bit? 7 feet.
Yeah.
We don't have, we're talking about it, but you may not have to move it back the entire 10 feet, maybe you can move it 7 feet, just to give you a little relief.
You have roosters or just chickens?
Sorry?
Roosters?
No, just,
So if we gave you the 7 feet on the chicken coop, would that be acceptable?
Yeah.
And we're gonna deny you the shed, because you'll have to remove it, and then the rest seems de minimis.
Pond.
Oh, the
Yeah.
pond, I forgot about the pond.
That's what I was thinking with the chairman. Since we reserved on the other ponds, we're gonna have to figure out how we want to handle these ponds in front yard, so it's not gated.
When was the pond built?
oh God, we're living there 51 years. It's probably there 45 years.
And it's only literally.
I really don't know.
It freezes and.
Want me to make a motion? You okay with it?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
This one's very small.
Small, tiny.
I'm okay with it.
Do you want to know the size of the pond?
Yeah. Dimensions are on there.
Doesn't just pull it out in the meeting.
Yeah, how do you measure an oval?
No, it's only 600 feet.
Okay.
Will you agree not to increase the size of the pond?
No,
Leave
we
it the way
can't.
it is at
It's
6
in
by
a,
2?
And
it's
no
in like,
piranhas in there.
Or
it's in a
alligators.
flower
Or
box,
alligators
like
either.
Well,
it can't be any bigger than that.
Does the flower bed have a gate?
What?
I like the way your dad fashioned the chicken coop to look like the barn, because the shed's really a barn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all rotted though.
Yeah.
It's been up there for years.
I'm glad that you said he's going to take it down, because it's much higher than the maximum 14 feet. I think zoning didn't realize that when they wrote the denial.
Well, you know
It's
what?
it's
That,
probably 20 feet high, right?
I don't even know, but that's been there about 35, 40 years.
Okay.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application? Please come forward.
Hello, good evening. My name is Richard Bracco, 213 East Farmingdale Street. I live next door to the Margaritas. Just here to give, I'm sorry, I'm just here to give a statement saying that the Bracco, Bracco. Okay, that the chicken coop and the shed are not a problem. My wife and I have absolutely no problem with it. To keep the yard immaculate, it's very nice. Coops don't smell. I mean, everything is fine. So there's really no reason to make an issue out of the chicken coop. I think it's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the big issue with,
And your name and address, please?
the big issue,
No, Can you please give us your name and address?
Name and address.
Elizabeth Schmidt, 342 Maplewood Street, Islip Terrace. SCHMIDT. The big issue with 215 East Farmingdale Road are the rats because of the chickens. I've seen families of rats crossing my fence. My neighbors have a problem. It costs me almost $1,700 a year for Terminex to come and put traps, but I still see them. It's a health hazard. It's gross. The problem is that the houses are so close to each other, they're on very small pieces of property. And all the neighbors being affected by it, including me. It's a big problem. It's a rat infestation. And even with the money that I'm paying to the pest company, they're still there. Because they're getting, as long as the chickens are there, the rats will be there. In my opinion, any resident in the town of Islip shouldn't be allowed to have chickens, a chicken coop in their yard if they're on less than a half of a quarter or a half of an acre of property, or even a quarter of acre of property.
Under the code, they're allowed to have it as only setback property.
Sorry?
Said under the code, they're allowed to have the chicken.
I know, but it shouldn't be.
Well, that's the law. There's nothing we can do about
Even
that
if
tonight.
he's taking care of it, they're still going to be there because of the chickens, and it's a health hazard.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have to
Thank you.
say.
Hold on, this gentleman would like to speak as well.
Like I said, the
Please
rats,
state your name and address.
Michael Delizio, I'm her son. The rats do come in the yard, and like the exterminator also said that is from the chickens. They're eating the food, and that's why they're coming into the yard. We have two traps for the rats, one on each end of our yard. We have pictures if you wanted to see. Yeah, Gulizio. I'm just saying that the exterminator is here. He comes and he verifies that's where they're coming from. They're coming from
Right.
because they have the chicken coop, but they're eating the food and they come into the yard.
But Sarah, our issue is how far it is from the property line, not whether they have it or not. You understand that?
I'm just saying.
Our hands are kind of tied on this. If they can locate it, then they can locate it. If they can put it 10 feet from the property line, we can't tell them they can't have it.
Yeah, I understand.
You should
Like
go
I
to the
said,
town board,
it's
you
just-
should go to the town board and ask for John Lorenzo and tell him that you think that they should be illegal.
No, we're not saying illegal. It's just we're saying that, we're paying monthly fees to prevent the rats from coming in our yard. That's what we're saying.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Rats eat
That's
the
all.
chickens? They eat the chicken food. So they eat the chicken
And-
food.
They eat the chicken food and they come to
Right.
people.
Is there something that you folks could do to help the rat population decrease?
I don't actually know
cat
which
eats the
house is
rat.
theirs, but the house, are you the little house?
342, they
Okay, the house next to you is the one who feeds the birds 4 or 5 times a day. And we've got bread and stuff coming over our fence, but I've never seen a rat.
Okay, folks,
Okay.
we have to address us. That's okay, I know.
Okay, so thank you. Oh, margaritas?
Don't leave
Don't
yet.
tempt us.
I'm sorry. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this application? Any other questions from the board?
You're gonna amend the call.
So we make the application. I'll make the application, I'll make the motion to grant the chicken coop at 10 feet where it's supposed to be.
Oh,
Okay?
that's
So
really-
that
That's the
application at
minimum.
1.7 is denied. You can put it at 10 feet by law. The shed is denied, the pond is granted, and the balance of the application is granted.
The pond is limited to
Current size.
current size
And no piranhas.
and no
Or
more.
alligators.
I'll second that application.
Thank you very much.
All in
Thank
favor?
you.
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
The modified application has been granted.
10 feet? They're going to comply.
No, he said 10 feet.
Very more 7 feet.
So that means he denied it.
Got it. It's moving close. Are we granting another pond application?
Well, I think we'll bring that up.
At the end? Okay, got it. Deny. Okay, got it, sorry. Application number 366-23, Ina Gutierrez and Roberto Lopez. Permission to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Town Code Section 68-419.1. Residence B District, northeast corner of Story Avenue and Pineville Road, Central Islip.
Hello, my name is Jason Guerra. I'm her son. Ina Gutierrez. We're here for the two-family family use. My mother's gone through countless surgeries. I'm just trying to be there under her, like separate entrances. That's about it.
Jason, could you just give us your address?
50 Story Avenue, Central Islip, New York, 11722.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No questions.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in this application? No, take a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the application for a period of 3 years.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or the application?
Thank you very much.
Application number 367-23, Christopher and Tony Ann Policelli. Permission to leave dwelling having first floor elevation of 10.04 feet instead of previously approved 9.8 feet. ZBA number 361-20. Pool patio having side yard of 3.9 feet instead of required 6 feet, and decking having side yard of 10.3 feet instead of required 14 feet. Residence A District, east side of Sequoms Lane Center, 920 feet south of Sequoms Way, West Islip.
Good evening, Christopher Policelli and Tony Ann Policelli, 221 Sequoms Lane Center. As for the first floor height, I know that we had been back here for 9.8 feet. I spoke with the builder about that. He basically said these things happen. It's less than 3 inches higher than what it was in the original set of plans. So when they build them, they kind of. That better? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you said it's basically like a building error. It was just less than 3 inches for the first floor height when he built it. The property, the area over there, the street floods like crazy. So we tried to, obviously we went to the first zoning approval, elevate the first floor. Yeah, sure.
I tell
Better?
him all the time that he mumbles. Now I guess
that's for the first floor height. As for the side deck, this was on the original set of building plans. If you could see, I actually provided you guys with the approved set of plans. It was just listed as a patio. During the construction phases, we changed it to a deck because the costs were astronomical. It's basically just an extension of the FEMA required condensing unit platforms on the side of the deck. They also provided photos so that you can kind of see what they look like.
Who is your builder, sir?
Layetta Contracting? Layetta Contracting? M. Layetta Contracting?
Where are they located?
He's in Babylon.
No, the only reason I asked is I looked at our zoning approval, and you were very specific at 9.8 feet. Again, this is not your doing or undoing. And it's built at 10.04, and it's just interesting that the builder tells you, it's just a builder's error.
Believe me, throughout this phase of everything with all the contractors, it was like crazy how some of these things didn't have to be precise. I totally agree with you 100%. And then as far as so for the side deck, we kept it, if you look at the plans, it's actually on the original set of plans, it shows it kind of encroaching even more on the side yard and going down. It's an elevated house, so it's an exit of the house. So the house is about 5 feet off of grade, roughly. So it's the only way to get out of the house. We kept it, instead of what was on the plans, we kept it as tight to the house as possible. You can see those in the photos that I provided as well, where it's only 3 feet wide and it runs right down the side of the house. It's really the minimum width that we could have made the staircase, really for code to get down it. And then as far as the pool patio, this is something that we had the pool permit open while we were building the house from the ground up. So we were picking out siding, roofing, colors of cabinet, everything. And we had the mason come when we were doing the pool. He kind of laid out the patio. We had plantings along the side of the property line, and that's what he had laid out. And we kind of gave him the go-ahead on it.
Do you still speak to the builder? You want to tell him that the board denied the application, and he's got to come back and fix it. See what he says.
For the first floor?
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be speaking to him anymore, definitely after that, right? I mean, jeez. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a strenuous process, the entire ground up construction during COVID for us with everything. But
And then they leave you to have to come.
exactly, then I'm here trying to get this closed out because you know the deal. It's there, they get paid and they're out, and then I'm here trying to close this out.
There was no intention to hold back until the receipt of the CO.
Well, no, not with him on this. That was my mistake. You learn, right? Yeah, you learn.
Any other questions from the board? Planning, do you have any concerns? No. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Application's granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I had a request for an adjournment, by the way, at the bottom of this page, Oscar Turner. See if anybody's here, 'cause- yeah. We've had a request for an adjournment on a 6:30 call. I'm just going to see if anybody's here on the application, 371-23, Oscar Turner. Okay, we have a request for an adjournment. Board's okay with that, right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yes. The adjournments were granted.
Thank you.
Assume you're in charge.
I know you.
This one. He's really neat about his folders.
Yeah, I had-
He doesn't like a mess.
But I had one. I had my own. No, that.
That's your
He did it, so I got it. Application number 368-23, Frank and Juliana Cardullo. Permission to erect first-story and second-story additions, leaving side yard of 13.9 feet instead of required 14 feet, total side yards of 27.8 feet instead of required 28 feet, and floor area ratio of 35.8% instead of permitted 25%. Residence A District, east side of Anchorage Drive, 1,368.42 feet south of Snedeker Avenue, West Islip.
Hi, my name is John P. Briscoe, architect. I'll spell the last name for you, Briscoe. I'm at 1561 North Thompson Drive, Bay Shore, New York. I am representing my clients Juliana and Frank Cardillo, owners of the subject property located at 107 Anchorage Drive, West Islip, New York.
Mr. Briscoe, can I just ask you,
Please.
you have three elements of your application. 13.9 instead of 14, you won't get an argument from us. 27.8 instead of 28, similarly, no argument.
Right.
An argument becomes 35.8 FAR instead of 25.
Yes.
Do you have anything to say?
I can point out to two previous ZBA approvals within the general neighborhood.
500 feet?
I'm sorry?
It's got to be within 500 foot radius of the subject matter.
I would point out that may be a little bit unfair since the client's property backs up against the Robert Moses Causeway, which really cuts the 500-foot radius. It reduces the amount of comparable area that they could compare it to.
Okay, well, then what do you have that is within a 500 foot radius?
I don't have those particular approvals. They're within a couple of blocks of the 500-foot radius.
Is it otherwise compliant neighborhood?
There are, in my research, there are properties which are over the 0.25 FAR, some running up to 0.25 to 0.30, and then some running up to beyond 0.30.
But the 500 foot radius is compliant. That's what we look at. If we just start going, well, it's really 1,000, it's 2 blocks, it's 3 blocks, then our 500-foot rule doesn't mean anything anymore. So,
Can I point out, however, though, that the 500-foot rule, I understand why that would be done, because you could, if you take a general kind of neighborhood, you have to establish some sort of limit. It's basically, in a way, an
Can I just tell
arbitrary
you
number.
that if you're gonna argue against the 500-foot radius, you're climbing up a hill that many have tried to climb up and not many have summited.
I'll do a little more climbing. I mean, I'd just like to point out that the neighborhood, generally where the exceptions are, the neighborhood itself is pretty self-contained. There's only one access into all the rest of the area, basically from Anchorage Drive. It's also bounded from the south by, obviously, the Great South Bay.
but the problem is, if we grant this, which is awfully high, very high, we grant this, and we have to grant it for everybody in a 500-foot radius, and it's going to change the nature and character of the neighborhood. It'll go from a compliant neighborhood to next week, somebody's going to come in and say, I want 35.8. Next week, you know what, I want 35.9, I want 36. Where does it stop? So maybe Deidre has some information for us, and we'll change
Okay.
everything I just said.
I can't go against that. I'm just pointing out the way that we're thinking about this.
There are 2 cases within 500 feet. There's
Okay.
102 Anchorage, which
me
is
actually-
across the street down here,
Okay.
which was granted 35.03. And then across the canal at 19, which I believe is in the bottom corner that you can't see, was granted 35.73.
Is that 19, what street, Deirdre?
Piper Court. sorry.
19 Piper.
Are there any particularities about those 2 grants, or they were just?
They were actually granted 35.94 and 36.8, but I brought them down to how we counted to today. But I think one, technically, they put a second story on their house, and it didn't seem like anything was different. Like nothing was specific to allow that. I think the other one was kind of the same thing. It was just, they thought it was in the neighborhood.
I'll take that.
500 square feet, so 500-foot radius.
Okay. There we go.
You want to let us know what precedent you
I don't think it's gonna get better than that.
I think it's good. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application? Any other questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
I'll second.
I thank you very much.
Aye.
And also to Deirdre as well.
Application's granted.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice night.
Application number 369-23, Julian Rivera, Marlene Ortega, and Vanessa Cortez Ayala. Permission to leave roofed over patio having side yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet, and shed with attached chicken coop having side yard of 4.7 feet instead of required 10 feet. Residence A District, north side of Peach Street, 330 feet west of Wilson Boulevard, Central Iceland.
Good evening. My name is Salim Ibrahim. I reside at 254-10 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Roselle, New York, 11422. Good evening. I hope everybody is well tonight. I'm here regarding roof over, a shed, and a chicken coop attached to the shed. I do have pictures, more detailed pictures that I went and able to do. As you can see, the roof over is a foot away from the property line. That's an issue, and also the shed. I believe the main issue from my experience and listening to the previous applications was the chicken coop area that was too close to the fence of 4.7 instead of the 10 feet. The previous case, you were allowed 7 feet to be located about 7 feet away.
No, we didn't. We left it at 10.
I know that was suggested though, but in this case, seeing the situation, if we are relocating the chicken coop, might as well relocate it back to 10 feet requirement, 10 feet. So that would be something that we can definitely do. Toward the shed and the roof over, that's something very difficult to relocate. And we'd like to have the chance to be approved regarding the shed and the roof over.
So I'm sorry, are you willing to move the chicken coop to 10 feet?
Yes, 10 feet, correct, yes.
10 feet?
Yes, 10 feet, yes.
So you're going to comply on that?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Comply on the chicken coop.
Yes, because if you were relocating it as well, you know. But the shed and the roof over is more important.
Is the roofed over patio, can they move that?
Excuse me?
Can they move the roofed over patio?
No, they can't. That's anchored to the the ground with close tools. And the shed is 14 by 12, I believe.
So they can move the shed with the coop attached to it?
No, you're the coop.
Keeping the shed. I'm sorry.
Leave
Keeping
the shed.
That's all right.
the shed, because that has the 4.7,
Okay.
but the coop will comply.
Okay. All right. Any more questions from the board?
You know what, I just want to make sure we understand this, because the photos of the chicken coop weren't clear. The shed doesn't house the chickens, right?
No, it doesn't. It's
Okay.
attached in the back of the.
Okay.
I got pictures showing in the way that the chicken coop is. There's a space between the coop and the shed, but they have a roof over.
Okay.
Make it attached. That's why.
Great.
Lenny, have any comments? Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
I'll make a motion to deny the chicken coop and grant the balance of the application.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Application number 235-23, adjourned from March 28, 2023, 193 Sunrise Realty LLC. Permission to install ground sign having area of 101.38 square feet instead of permitted 45.5 square feet, and height of 30 feet instead of permitted 15 feet. 2 facial signs having height of 22.83 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. 3 public interest facial signs having sign areas exceeding permitted 3 square feet and having height of 13 feet instead of permitted 10 feet each. 2 public interest ground signs having sign area of 15.06 square feet instead of permitted 3 feet each. Business 3 District, northwest corner of Sunrise Highway and Udall Road, West Islip.
Good evening, John Gentile, attorney for the Atlantic Automotive Group, and Gentile, address 193 Sunrise Highway, West Islip, New York. Good evening. I'm also going to have with us Mike Calamuso from North Shore Neon, talking on part of the application. May I just give these up?
Oh, this is the sign case?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we change anything?
Yes.
Did we change anything?
We did.
Yeah.
All right.
Just make it a little narrower?
No, what we were able to do, if everyone recalls, at the last meeting, there were 3 issues, I believe, that were raised. One was with respect to the height of the sign. The second was with respect to the thickness of the sign. And the third was with respect to the overall square footage of the sign. Through lots of conversations with planning and with the manufacturer of the sign, we were able to, I believe, address the issue first and foremost with respect to overall square footage of the sign. This was done by the manufacturer of the sign relocating the actual lettering and raising it up on the sign. For Kia, this was moving a mountain. It's a one-off for them. It's the only sign in the entire country that's going to look this way because they've relocated their lettering. So by virtue of moving the lettering up on the sign, it's reduced the square footage to what I believe is an acceptable overall square footage based upon my conversations with planning. With respect to the height of the sign, it has remained at 30 feet. The reason for it remaining at 30 feet, however, is by virtue of the request that it be maintained at 30 feet is due to its location. Its location is on the westbound service road of Sunrise Highway at Udall. And at that location, it's the overpass of the Sunrise Highway, which is very elevated there. It's at the peak of the overpass. And respectfully, anything lower than 30 feet, you'd not be able to see the sign and would not give any visibility to traffic. As far as the thickness of the sign is concerned, one of the things that was raised at the last meeting was a concern that the sign looked rather boxier, almost like a cube. As I think you can now see from the drawing that you're looking at, The sign is fortunately not going to look like a cube. It's about 10 feet wide, and the thickness has to remain, however, at 3 foot, I believe it's 3 foot 2 inches. And the reason why is what we've been told by Patterson Sign, which manufactures the sign, is that in order to maintain its structural integrity, they could not shrink the thickness of the sign below that.
How much thinner is this rendition than the original one?
There's been no change, respectfully, there's been no change in the thickness or the
Oh,
thinness.
I'm
of it.
sorry, not the thickness, the width. I apologize.
Oh, the width, no, it's the same.
So what was changed?
If you notice the location of the word Kia on the sign, by virtue of moving that from, it was lower in the sign, by moving it up, we were allowed to meet the square footage requirements.
Just regarding any technical questions about the sign itself, the only thing that lights up there is actually the word Kia. Everything else is just blank space. Nothing else is illuminated other than the lettering itself. So, in reality, that's really all you're going to see at night is the word Kia. You're not going to see the rest of the sign in the evening hours.
Could you just introduce your name?
Oh, sure. Michael Cole, 28 Colorado Drive, Rocky Point, New York, with no shortening of sign. COLAMUSSI.
I'll just state that after our last hearing, I made it my business to drive by and eyeball that existing sign and imagine where the new sign would be. And it's an area that could handle a sign a little larger than we grant because it's right under the highway. It's not near homes.
Right.
It's not standing out in the way. It's in a kind of an odd location, and you have Sunrise Highway going over it. And I didn't think that it would be obtrusive.
If I may too, the existing sign that's there is actually 35 feet tall. There are some pictures here of the existing sign.
Mike.
I don't think it was over the height. I understand you need the height because of the road.
What's there now, so if you saw that and you thought the height was acceptable.
No, I was, you know, this is a little, quite a bit larger than we normally grant, but it seems to fit the area. It's just a, I don't want to say industrial, but it's a car retail area, and it's not like it's in a residential
Right.
or it's sitting out there on the highway. And I can understand the application.
All right. You have car lots and then you have a basically shopping center next to that, so it's.
Right.
So the way the code reads is that anything underneath, like the wording on signs, does not count towards the area, it's just the structural support. So that's why it was important to move the wording Kia further up, so that there was less dead space to count towards the whole sign area. So they have decreased from previously asking for a sign area of 163 to now 101. So they have gone down with that because they were able to move it up. I even spoke with Kia representatives and they did say they couldn't make it skinnier, even if that's what I really wanted. But they did move it, did alter the sign as much as they could.
You okay with it?
There's also precedent for height and some area.
Well, we then also have the part with respect to the building sign. Should we do that next or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I do have some pictures of the building, the existing condition, if the board would like to see that.
I think they're all in the file, right?
Excuse me?
I think they're all in the file.
Okay, basically, the building as it exists, again, previously, this building's been there forever. When I say forever, originally it was.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we didn't have a problem with the building sign.
We never discussed it, so, yeah, if the.
No, they're within what we.
Okay, that's fine. So really, I guess it was really nothing to discuss about that.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Is anyone else who'd like to be heard on this application? No?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application's granted.
Everyone,
Good job. How difficult was it trying to convince Kia?
Ask what's wrong.
Were they like, who is Iceland?
They use lots of examples why they wouldn't do it, but, and now they're all, and trust me, we're paying for it, because the silliness of relocating that sign is gonna cost us an absolute fortune.
Really?
It is what
I'm sure you'll make it back.
I hope so, I certainly hope so. Thank you again.
Go on.
Application number 370-23, Columbia Partners LLC. Permission to erect second-story addition and roof over, leaving second front yard of 3.08 feet instead of required 10 feet. Addition to second-story covered stairs and facade addition on front property line instead of required 1 foot. And second front yard of 9 feet instead of required 10 feet, all having floor area ratio of 124% instead of permitted 60%. Business District, northeast corner of West Main Street and Park Avenue, Bay Shore.
Good evening. David Bush, registered architect. Address is at 90 West Main Street, Bay Shore, New York. I'm here on behalf of the owners in request for variance. I have a aerial site key map if you guys would like me to hand it out, if it helps things. This building is it's an existing building. It's an existing multi-tenant building. It has single-story and two-story components. As mentioned, it's on the northeast corner of Park Avenue and Main Street, right in the downtown area of Bay Shore. The space that's being looked at, it's a renovation of the existing Peninsula Fusion, Asian Fusion restaurant. Recently, we've gone to the planning board. We've got approval from the planning board for the proposed project. Per the call, there's 5 items: the proposed second-story addition and roof over, leaving a corner yard setback of 3.08 feet instead of the minimum required 10-foot setback. As referenced, this is a corner property, and within the BD zoning calls, within the BD zoning, on the second front, if you own a corner property, request a 10-foot setback. And this is at the side street of Park Avenue, with Main Street being the primary front. The existing building, the area work, has an existing setback or side yard of 0.4 feet west, or if you will, over the line. It's over the property line. The second floor addition proposed is for an egress stair and a second floor roofed over area. The new stair in line of the existing on this west side along Park Avenue actually set back 3'1" from the existing sidewall. So again, rather than going straight up, they increased the setback for the second floor.
Mr. Bush, can I ask you a question? I'm looking through the call of the calendar, and I see where it says halfway down, facade addition on front property line instead of required 1 foot and second front yard of 9 instead of 10. What's the 1 foot? I can't.
Yeah, it's tricky to follow. So the front line,
Can I ask you a question? Could you demonstrate it on this document?
yeah,
Could you draw out what, I don't know where the 1 foot instead of, 1 foot instead of 10? I mean, to me, that sounds, thank you, Joe. Am I right? It's 1 foot instead of 10?
What are the setbacks existing now?
okay. If you look at the survey in the package, the existing setbacks are less than what's proposed. We have a building which is a lot line construction at the ground floor. It has its greatest setback to the west along Park Avenue is 0.4 feet west, which means it's 0.4 feet over the line. And to the south, it has corners along Main Street, which is 0.2 feet. I'm sorry,
Okay, so just hold that thought a second.
Yes.
I'm looking at and I think we all know this area. and
Yep.
I've seen it a million times. You want to go further closer to the street than what's existing?
No,
You want to go away?
correct.
Right now, you're
Well-
already over the property line with what's there.
Correct. The
You're
building
gonna bring
is
it back from that.
the building is, and I want to be careful, the building is, it's a lot, I'm going to call it a lot line construction. It's within inches of the property line on the west side and the Main Street side, right? On the Main Street, we're to have a 1 foot setback. The existing front of the building is closer than 1 foot from the Main Street property line, if you look at the existing survey. It actually has parts of the building which overhang the property line by 0.3 inches.
Is that, okay, I'm
I'm sorry.
looking at this right here, this document.
Yes,
I'm looking at, looks like the silver panels that say peninsula.
correct.
Is that what overhangs?
Yes, yes,
So you're going to remove that,
correct.
but the first floor where the lions who were guarding the restaurant, apparently, that's going to remain the same? Well, the lions probably going to go, but
Well, the corner, if you look at the rent, the corner building, it's top that, match that diagonal, that overhang goes away.
the overhang goes away.
Yeah.
And does the facade stay where it is? Does it get pushed back?
The facade,
That faces Main Street. That remain, I mean, it can't get any closer. It'll be on the sidewalk.
no.
So
Bear
that's
with me
going
one
to remain
second.
where it is?
Bear with me 1 second, please.
On your compliance table, on your site plan, it says that the facade on Main Street, the front yard, is currently 7 inches from the property line where 1 foot's required, and it's
Correct.
proposed now at 0 feet. So
Correct.
it is getting closer.
Correct, correct.
So it's,
And
wait, so it's making the sidewalk, albeit by a couple inches smaller.
yes, if I did the math, it's less than 6 inches smaller.
Okay. Why?
But and if I may, that is the stair element, that's that brick stair element, right?
I don't know what a
The-
stair element is. Stairs?
This brick piece.
What's going to be up there, apartments or second floor of the restaurant?
Second floor restaurant.
I'm sorry, what is a stair element?
Says PCS.
Okay.
So if you look at that drawing, the blue red line, right, that's the top of it. You see the storefront, everything else is set back behind it.
My question is, why do you have to come forward? Why can't you, why? I mean, it's the side, it's on top of the sidewalk as it is.
The 6 inches since ceiling makes a big difference. So the circumference of that stair, the egress, within the space, and we are bringing the structure back, the whole line of the structure is back, again, like you look at the dimensions, like 4 feet. So beyond what's there, although it's setting back to the property line, the existing building is over the property line with the surface. It's 24 feet.
But that's the facade, those silver panels.
Correct. Those silver panels running to that end wall. The end
So
wall is on the right-hand side.
you're going to remove the silver panels, but that brick area, I think you call stair element, is going to come closer to the sidewalk.
Stair element is proposed to come to the property line. Yes.
So it's going to encroach further on the sidewalk. I don't understand how that's a good idea for us to make the sidewalk even less useful. I don't understand how that's smart zoning. Sidewalk's only
Yeah.
X feet wide. The limits, why would you want to encroach further on that? It's not as though you have 20 feet to play within 6 inches. It's a sidewalk.
If I may, if we take a look at drawing A1.1,
I'm
which is,
sorry.
if you look within the package at drawing A1.1, yes, the first floor plan.
A1?
A1, yes,
So
A1,
it's like the fourth page in.
the first floor plan. Right? You can see to the east, right, which is the top of the plan, the top corner, next to the adjacent tenant. That's an existing wall line, which is at the property line, basically, right? The new storefront, the existing storefront, if you look at the survey, the point being the primary wall, the primary storefront is actually being set back from the existing condition of the current storefront. It's only that corner of that stair that touches the property line, which is demonstrated inside that. And the The difference inside the stair, when you, with the code, with the egress and the separations, sounds silly, but those 1 or 2 inches will impact the ability for that stair to happen inside that space.
So now I'm looking at A1.1, and I see it's not encroaching really onto the sidewalk.
No, it's not.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Glenn, do you have any comments?
No comments on it. There is precedent for like the FAR. There's other cases where they have a 0-foot second front yard, 0-foot front yard. It's all in the Main Street, downtown area, so a lot of the buildings are right up to that property line.
Has this been before planning board?
Yes. Yeah, it was approved for the bar and the top, rooftop bar and everything.
Okay, do you have any more questions?
Nope.
What, do you have anything else you want?
As Deidre stated, there is precedent for on Main Street in Bay Shore. Thank you.
Next time, start with that one.
I started and I was asked a question. I tried to address that question.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this application?
Motion to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The next application has been adjourned to an open date. Application number 372-23, Real Estate Plaza, Inc. Permission to erect second-story addition and attached cabana, leaving floor area ratio of 27.26% instead of permitted 25%. To leave masonry column and fence with an adjacent driveway site triangle exceeding 3 feet in height. To erect 6-foot fence on front property line not having required 15-foot setback. To modify pool patio, leaving side yard of 6 feet instead of required 10 feet, and to install water feature in front yard instead of required rear yard exceeding maximum height of 5 feet. Residence AA District, west side of Beach Road, 803.04 feet south of Elder Road, Islip.
Good morning, members of the board. Good evening, members of the board. Andrea D. Nicola from the office of Eugene L. D. Nicola, 200 Railroad Avenue, Sayville, New York. Getting into it on this, the applicant has a single-family dwelling at 16 Beach Road, AA District in Islip.
Yeah, somebody's making a lot of noise.
Is that better? Okay, that's good. The applicant's single-family dwelling is in the Residence AA District at 16 Beach Road in Islip. It has frontage along Beach Road of 100.12 feet and borders Middle Canal to the rear. According to the survey, the parcel has a total lot area of 23,790 square feet. The parcel is improved with a 2-story main dwelling, 7 masonry columns in the front yard for a future fence. In the rear yard, there's an in-ground pool adjacent to a raised 2-foot patio with a water feature. It has a masonry shed on the south and a raised patio on the north at the rear of the dwelling. The existing gross floor area is 5,928 square feet, and the applicant seeks to add to the dwelling 250 square feet on the second floor for area over the garage and 300 square feet for a proposed roofed-over cabana on the north patio in the rear yard. It's a shading feature. So the proposed total gross floor area of the dwelling would be 6,478 square feet, and that requires a floor area ratio variance to allow for FAR of 27.26% instead of 25, a 2.26 increase. So Beach Road has several examples of homes with front yards that have fountains and masonry pillars. And those are found at 6 Beach Road with a fountain, 10 Beach Road with masonry walls, columns, and fencing and a fountain, 12 Beach Road for which there is a variance approved number 114 of 07, and that has a wall, columns, fencing, and it did receive the variance. I have one copy up there of the variance. I'm sorry, my
The
copier.
water features.
The water features, the
water-
fountain.
The fountains, are those that you cited at 6 and 10 Beach? Are those pursuant to grant of this board?
The only BZA grant I have is 114-07, that application number.
And what is that, water feature?
That is for 12 beach roads, fence and masonry columns in the front, 5-foot columns and 6-foot columns. So to answer your question, Mr. Wexler, no, I don't have a particular grant, but there are plenty of photographs of, these homes have very deep front yards, many with circular driveways, and in the center of the circle, there is a water feature. Under the code, I respectfully take issue with the zoning department. I don't think it regulates the height. And on this proposal, assuming it is completely fenced in from the front yard, it would be a fully enclosed water feature. There would be a gate, a fence across the front yard, and fences along the side yards.
So I guess with respect to the water features, we have to decide as a board, because if we grant this one, then we're basically opening up the floodgates for the water feature. Which, I don't have an opinion one way or another, I'm just saying that's the practical effect. We're not going to be able to say no.
Well, we have flag poles, we have other types of features that are in houses.
That's patriotic.
Isn't it though? I know, I am. So toward the fountain, I believe it's coming under decorative pond. It's not a pond. There is an accumulating basin, and then there's a spray over 3 tiers. So it's a fountain.
Ms. DiNicola?
Yes, Mr.
Is there
Nicolia.
a basin with walls that fills up with water?
Yes, there is,
So
and
that's
I agree that that is an accumulation, but it could be just several inches. But again, fully enclosed with a fence. Okay, so continuing, do you want to talk about the columns? So let's talk about the columns. We have 7 of them. 5 are toward the street, but I'll say they're on the property line. They are 5 feet tall. There are now white caps on them for the ones that are closest on the property line. The white caps are being removed. It is going to be approximately 5 feet from the grade of the applicant's parcel, and it will be capped with a blue slate. Then a blue slate, bluestone slate. Then there are 2 6-foot columns that are set further back, 12 feet from the property line. And I measured today, since the right-of-way is fairly deep, it's about 24 feet to the pavement from the 6-foot columns. And they would be the supports for a gate that closes across the driveway.
Would you tell us about whenever we see, if it is, intrusion into a site triangle, we get a little concerned.
Okay, so the south column, adjacent to, that's,
That
you,
one?
no,
That one?
no,
That one?
no, no, it's not there. It's not shown.
not
There is,
It was on the aerial before.
it's in the package of photos. Let me see if I get you here.
Oh, that's my.
I got it.
There you are. That's the
The
south
third
column.
photograph.
So apparently, if it's in a purported site triangle, the height can be 3 feet. We're requesting the height to where the stone ends. It's approximately 5 feet, and then that cap is being removed.
I'm sorry, so you are removing this.
That cap, yes, those
and
caps
then
are being
it'll just
removed.
be right here,
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Wexler.
and, I like sir.
Oh, I know you
And
do.
This would be, I'm sorry, this would be the height, would be what?
That's approximately 5 feet. Now, I measured it, it's like about, it's a little less than 5 feet, but the 1-inch cap is probably going to push it to 60 inches. I measured it at 57 inches today. But that's on my side of the grade. Now, the trouble with the driveway is this house was probably built and the driveway was probably installed before 2004. So the driveway does not maintain a 4-foot setback and the driveway encroaches over my client's property. So the driveway is also problematic. Now, also, there is the right-of-way, like I said, is deep, and there is almost 14 and a half feet to the pavement. So a car does pull up and stops at the pavement on the Boyd driveway, I believe that's the owner's name, with a clear sight line.
Can I ask a question? Once again, this will be 5 feet high.
That is measured at, I measured it at 57, so it may even come in lower, but yes, I'm using approximately 5 feet width.
If it was 3 feet, it would be legal.
If it
Or is
would be
that-
3 feet, it would not violate a site triangle, which the Boyd driveway doesn't maintain because it doesn't even have the setbacks or anything. It kind of cuts across, you couldn't do that driveway today.
We get a lot of site triangle cases, and I think it's almost a knee-jerk reaction to say, no, it's safety, but from my mind, I mean, I'm very familiar with this neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up around the corner. A car, I don't see it being a dangerous situation unless I'm wrong, that if a car goes to pull out, you have all the space to look down the road. It's also a dead end.
Correct, correct.
I don't know with the additional 2 feet, it's, let's say 5, and it's supposed to be 3, does that make it so much safer? I don't know the answer, I'm not a planner. Maybe details. That's the
How long
issue.
has it been there?
It's 3 years.
Has there been any accidents?
No.
Well, we don't take a wait and see approach. So maybe, maybe Deidre can learn us what we need to know. Is that dangerous where it is?
The idea is that the field of vision when you're sitting in a car starts 3 feet and then goes to, I believe, 8 feet. So those 5 feet in between is where they want to kind of be clear. If the column was skinnier, I believe if it was only 12 inches, then it would be okay. But because it's 2 feet, 2 by 2 feet, that's where it kind of goes. And along a resident's driveway, even the site triangle gets measured from the curb, not from the property line. So even
Correct.
though it's 4 feet from the curb, the site triangle goes from the curb into the property. 16
No, it's like 14 feet from the curb.
Right, but the site distance triangle gets measured from the curb, not the
Correct.
property line.
16
And it goes
feet.
16 and across, so it's smack dab kind of in that.
So what I guess I'm taking from that is planning believes it's a legitimate safety issue as opposed to.
I would just think if someone's backing out, if they're not head first, if they're backing out, they have a big truck, it might be something that could block, like a kid on a bike or something like that. Not necessarily another motorist as a person driving, but it could be a kid riding a bike, a scooter, anything like that that they may not be able to see because they can't see the field of
Sure.
vision down onto the street. That's just would be my concern.
I have a question for Jordan. We've gone over this issue quite a bit in the past. Do we have the authority in the jurisdiction to grant the variance in site triangle?
It's a good question. It's not clear.
So I'm asking for the variance if it's not clear. That's how it was written up. And truthfully, I don't see many of these written up this way.
Can I ask you, of the application here, we have to decide where, as a board, I guess, we're going to see where we want to go with water features.
Mhm.
See, because once we grant this, we
Stay with 1 second, go back to the site. The hedge is right next to the pillar. Whose hedges are those?
Those are Mrs. Boyd's
The neighbors.
neighbors, yes.
is there something that they can do to modify that pillar or post or whatever they call it?
Well,
What we're talking about. To make it compliant, because you see, we're kind of struggling with A, whether or not we can do it legally, and B, is it a safety issue? That's my only concern.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Wexler. I don't have the answer. Jordan doesn't have the answer about whether or not this is a jurisdiction issue, and this is something that can't even be requested of a variance for. So that's what I'm getting. but there are other columns down the street that are also 5 foot high. No mention of site triangles.
Yeah, but did Mr. Havemeyer build them when he developed the area? Predating zoning by about 60 years?
Maybe Mr. Nicole, yeah, but no, in application number 114, we talk about 5 foot pillars, 6 foot pillars. It's 2 doors up. So I'm just going to put a beat in it, and I do want to clarify for the record. I was there today, and Mr. Wexler, if you could just use your little laser pointer.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, the shorter bush to the rear of the column, they're not there anymore. Somebody took them out. Mrs. Boyd must have taken them out, as well as those arborvitaes are gone too, that are between the pillars. So this is I was there. Yes, yes. Now the fence is advertised as 6 feet in height. Mr. Escobar and I spoke, and he wants a 5 foot fence. So there would be a 5 foot fence in between the pillars and graduating to the gate across the driveway, and the same treatment on the north side of the driveway.
Would you want to do some research on that site triangle? Nobody seems to know the answer. I think that's.
We'll reserve. Let's see. Let's reserve, and we'll go to the rest of the structures on the parcel.
Fair enough.
Was it addressed in that decision you referenced?
The pillars were granted.
Was the site distance triangle?
No, I don't believe it
I
was.
think that's the section it referred to, 406.
So 406, and it.
It's right there?
Then it granted it.
I'm not sure. You're the
Okay.
lawyers.
Well, perhaps
But it
406A.
says something about,
Let's see.
oh, it was the earlier decision of this applicant, right? That, maybe when they, hold on, they changed the call of the meeting for the second hearing, similar to this. Is this our
Yeah.
4th hearing?
I'm sorry?
Is this our 4th hearing, I said?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, also to leave security gate in violation of section 68-406A.
That gate's very much closer to the road. So 68406A on my note, subsection C says, in a site triangle, a fence 3 feet high above adjacent pavement edge with a site triangle, or when set back less than 8 feet from the street pavement. So that column is not less than 8 feet from the street pavement. That is approximately 14 and a half feet from the street pavement. That's why I spoke earlier about the cars pulling through, no side obstruction. She's going to the end of her apron, as you can see where it's all paved. That's 14 feet. So it's set back even further than the 8. So I think we're good on the site triangle. There seems to be an either or. Okay. So
The rest of the application seems to me.
the FAR is de minimis, respectfully. I do want to add about the patio in the back. It's raised. It's proposed with a 6 foot setback instead of 10. If the board has any questions on that,
How high is it raised?
24 inches, 2.0 feet. Now, that one, we don't really want to have contention with. It is in deference to the Boyds who are here this evening. I spoke with their counsel outside. What I did say was that the front of this estate is really, it's beautiful. The rear, on that raised patio, and there are pictures of it, it does have a water feature in it. So the entire patio can't go, but the patio could be cut back to meet a 10-foot setback with a 2 foot high, with a 2 foot height. Now, I've discussed the FAR. I think it's de minimis at 2.26%. It falls well within the board's policy of up to 29. discussed variance on the side, on the south side patio, and the masonry shed will comply. That's going to be cut down to meet the 2-foot side yard required for a 144 square foot shed.
Yeah. I'll find it for you.
Respectfully, I don't think the variances if granted tonight cause a detriment to the health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood. And I ask that the board close the public hearing at the end after tonight's hearing, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
This is a picture of the raised water feature in the patio in the back.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Above ground pool, so.
Understood. Yes, he would like to keep it. Proposing it at 6 instead of 5. Okay, that's what the proposal is. Well, excuse me, there's 5 existing. He's proposing it at 6. We need 10 if we comply. Okay, are there any other questions?
At this time, are there any other questions for Mr. Keating? Yes.
No.
Just the site.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application?
Good evening. My name is John Leonard. I represent Susan and Mark Boyd, who are the southerly homeowners at 18 Beach Road in Islip, New York. We're here to oppose the masonry column in question. Well, actually, that and the request for an area variance with regard to the front yard setbacks for all of the masonry columns. As we've discussed, the masonry column at the southern edge of the property is in the site triangle. It is violative of 68-405. The driveway leg is to be 16 feet. The column at approximately 2 feet square, the front of it is, as the applicant's attorney said, some 14 and a half feet from the road.
Do you know the law, whether or not we can grant the variance on a site triangle?
I don't believe that you can. I was brought onto this case on Sunday. I have not seen anything that indicates that you have or don't have jurisdiction. In that instance, I would ask this panel to adjourn the hearing for briefing with regard to the jurisdictional issue, rather than move forward and then have an Article 78 proceeding. This column, I mean, we can sit here and talk theoretically about the danger of the column, but in reality, I have some photos I'd like to hand
So
out.
you mean the Article 78, if we deny this, Mr. Nicole's going to bring the Article 78?
Possibly, absolutely. I mean, for the case of for the benefit of economy, I think it makes sense for the board to adjourn, to allow the
I'm
jurisdictional
curious,
issue.
How do you know what Ms. Nicola would bring Article 78 or not? I mean,
Because she's Ms. Nicola.
I don't know Ms. Nicola. I only know what I know.
Just wondering, that's like saying,
I've handed up some photos. I have 5 copies for you.
So you're opposed to the pillar on the southerly side of the property?
Correct.
You're, just so we know, you're opposed to the water feature in the front yard?
I'm not taking a position on the water feature in the front yard. It sounds awful, but we're not going to take a position on the height with regard to that.
And,
It sounds gaudy, if you ask me.
Sounds awful.
And so what about the water feature in the backyard?
We're not taking a position with regard to anything in the backyard.
So what is it that you are against?
Pillars.
Well, the pillars in the
All of
front.
them.
Yes. Yes. They should be pushed to the 15-yard setback. and the masonry pillar, the masonry column right on the Boyd's property right there should be moved out of the site triangle. Now, you'll see in the photos, the photo you have at number 1 is just about the same as that photo. But what you will notice in our photo 1, right to the west of that masonry column, you will see cinder block. The whole front yard had been filled, bringing it up about approximately 8 inches. So the measurement of the column from 16 Beach Road's side will get a shorter height on the column than if you do it from the actual road, which is about even to the driveway. So from my client's side of the property, that column is approximately now 6 feet tall. 6 feet and change.
That's because they raised the.
I'm just
Correct.
curious too, sir. The picture
Right,
here
there
shows
were
all- shows all
rocks.
the bushes on your client's property.
Yes, and those were removed for the benefit of being able to see.
Just before you came in to oppose the column, you pulled out all the bushes.
No, those bushes have been taken out. When did you take those out? Yeah. Yes, my clients complained about the placement of the column. And as you all know, the column was built before any variance was requested.
Let me just ask you a question, so I understand. I mean, I don't have a feeling one way or another about column, you're just seeing this. I understand the column that's adjacent to the driveway and the side triangle issue. What is about the other columns? It's not side triangle related, it's just they don't like them
Well,
there.
what's going to go up is a wrought iron estate fence, estate gate. And that, I'm being told, is transparent. Well, unless it's like Wonder Woman's airplane, it's not going to be transparent. It's going to be opaque. And it creates as much of a danger going out into the driveway as does the column sitting right there within the site triangle. And so by moving, I apologize, but by moving all of them back to their proper place, I think we avert the potential for the danger of coming out into the street. Now, yes, this is a dead-end road, but to the left of my client's driveway, as you're coming out, is where all the traffic is coming from. The dead end is right over here. And I think the planning department's comments with regard to the myriad of possibilities for danger really does instruct this board to take this with a chary eye. You do have children in the, I just was driving down the road today before this hearing, and there were 3 or 4 children on bicycles. You will see in picture number 6, the column next to an SUV or a Toyota truck. And you'll see that it obscures even a truck driver's line of vision. Placing a wrought iron fence or wrought iron gate is going to further compound that.
I don't want to belabor the point, but people would pull out of the driveway. I could see the pillar, which the subject pillar, potentially being an issue. I understand how the wrought iron fence, couldn't you pull just in front of that pillar or wherever, whatever we allow there, and you'd have a view down the street? How does the fence?
Right, but you do have the whole front of the car ahead of you. And the wrought iron fence continues to obscure your vision going up the block
Not if you pull past the pillar.
until you have to
The
pull
apron.
almost into the street in
Well,
order
into
to
the
get a
apron.
clear view.
I guess, all right, I guess I would say that you pull up onto the apron,
Mhm.
and that's when you look down the street. I don't know if you'd be 6 foot behind that pillar.
I think the
trying to-
picture is deceiving.
Okay, no, he and I grew up there.
I understand that. I was there just now, and I think the picture is deceiving. I think it looks as though there's more room than there actually is. especially when you have an entire car in front of you.
Question on the pictures you.
Yes.
Picture number 6, was that taken today?
When was that picture taken? The picture with the SUV? It was taken when probably a year ago, when the foliage was still there.
Deidre, if I may, Mr. Chairman, can you chime in on, we already discussed the subject pillar. What about the fence? Is that a safety issue? And what?
I guess, I'm not too sure about this, the site being disruptive, because it would be out of, or at least that one pillar on the corner, if it was moved back or if it was moved in, it could be out of the site triangle, and then once it's
Right.
out the site triangle, it's not counted as a safety issue.
Right, because the fence wouldn't be in the site triangle.
Right, it's really
Right.
just the pillar. It would just be a safety issue for the pond, making sure that no one's.
And the fence is going,
But that's like a whole.
Right, I
other
think
thing.
that the pond is the
Right.
least of the drowning concerns.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
water.
the fence is going to abut the pillars, right? It's going to run
Yeah,
right
probably
along
right in the
on the
middle of
street
It's not
side.
going between the.
Yeah, the
Right.
pillars are gonna anchor the fence, I assume.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. I mean, look, if the board were to require the movement, and I think that that's a perfectly reasonable compromise, to move that pillar out of the site triangle, and condition the variance on the agreement that the pillar will be brought down to 5 feet, I think that would resolve my client's issues.
So it boils down to the pillar.
Yes, if that, well, yes, it's a multi-pronged, it's a multi-pronged opposition, but that pillar is right now a danger.
So if we can, again, this is a big if, none of us know the answer, but if we can reduce the pillar to 5 feet, that would be okay.
No, not in its current position.
Oh, you want to
Because
move
it's
it?
still,
He
because
wants it moved.
it's 5 feet from where? 5 feet from the,
No, height.
no, I understand that, but 5 feet from, because of the change in grade. Thank you. Yes.
So you have to move it out of
Don't we
the,
measure the grade as, I understand they raised it, so don't we either measure the four corners or from the crest of the road? Isn't that how we measure grade?
No, you would be measuring the height of the pillar from the, it should be the natural grade of the road,
No, I think it's the crest of the road.
but it wouldn't be, this homeowner has filled. So what you're doing is you would be allowing a 6-foot pillar saying it was actually 5 feet.
I got you, okay.
Correct, the base of the pillar, and part of the pillar is exposed on one side and part of the pillar is obfuscated on the other by additional fill. And really, the perception of the pillar, it should be taken into consideration from the perception of the person coming out of the driveway, where there is no fill.
So let me just ask one other question.
Sure.
Maybe Ms. Dina Cole, or for either of you, and then I think exhaust the subject. If we said, no, you can't put that subject pillar there, what would they put there to anchor the fence?
Sure. Yeah, please. It's on it.
Like a fence post?
First of all, the pillar is allowed to stay at 3 feet. It just can't, so we're talking height.
Right.
So it's the difference between 3 and the 5. Right now, it's at 5. The allegations about the grade, no proof. This house was built, plans were approved, grade was done according to all the plans. So this is not a nefarious grade change, Mr. Leonard. And I take umbrage at the fact that you're trying to say that my client is trying to pull something over. So that pillar is based on top of the grade, wherever you want to measure it from, but you're not giving a code regulation. You're taking a point in space. It's on the dirt. There's the dirt. there's 5 feet to the top, and that's exactly where the grade is. There is no grade change on this house that bears any mention or has any effect on the variance.
Let me ask you one question. If we said we can't grant variance, pardon me, for the site triangle, and you had to put the pillar at 3 feet?
It's a possibility, sure.
Pardon me? That's the whole.
That's the whole thing with him. Yeah, sure.
Nothing else seems to be offensive to the objectors, and nothing else, other than when we decide what we do with water features, everything else is rather mundane.
But the fence would still be requesting at 5 feet, so.
Instead of 4 feet.
Instead of 4 feet, correct.
Okay.
And maybe I misheard you earlier, but your client is going to be shortening the pillar one way or the other, right? Or did I mishear you?
Well, they're gonna take the white.
We're taking the white cap off, so that reduces the
Are they
mass.
taking all the other white caps off?
Yes, the white caps will be taken, well, the ones on the property lines, but the caps will be a little different on the pillars that are taller, closer to the house. So they have a greater setback. Yeah.
Isn't there one more alternative to answer Mr. Wexler's question? If the column were less than 12 inches in width, Deirdre, wouldn't it be permitted in the site distance triangle?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have a width issue. So there are some other things, and that's usually the caliber of trees in the site triangle that they gave an example of.
Signpost.
What would your
That's signpost,
client
correct.
suffer greater? A 3-foot post or a 12-inch post? We have to. Would you like some time to think about it?
That's pretty definitive.
Yeah.
Well, wait, is there anyone else that would like to be heard in this application?
I mean, if you had your druthers.
So if I had my druthers because of the symmetry in the fence and you need to anchor it, I would say leave the column width at 2 by 2, and it could be made to the height of 3 feet. It could be, it's possible.
I have a quick question.
Sure,
So,
Deirdre.
in between the pillars, is the fence gonna be 5 feet?
5 feet.
Okay, so not the 6 feet that's.
I know, the
saying-
call says 6 feet,
Okay, and then
5 feet, my client
behind
confirms.
like the pillar in question, going back, it's 4 feet?
4 feet,
Okay.
yes. We could also do 5 all around, either way, but there will be, it would be fully enclosed with a fence. If there are any other questions of the board?
You got to amend the call to lower the three.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions from the board? So Leonard, would you like?
I have a question, and with regards to this 5-foot fence, you're gonna have a 3-foot pillar, and then it's a 5-foot fence right there. Will it be scalloped?
Well, we could have a 5-foot column with a 5-foot fence. Those are your choices.
Although I think you could probably also put a 3-foot column and then put a fence post on top of it.
It would look
Or next
funny.
It would look funny,
It
but,
would look funny, but yes, I suppose there's
you know,
a myriad of ways, Mr. Nicolia. Thank you for that. I hadn't thought about it. Yeah.
You could scallop it down.
yeah, that would be the same thing as having it in the site. Except it would be code compliant. 5-foot fence, big block, in the site.
As long as
No,
it's less than 12 inches in width at any point.
Anybody else like to be heard on this application?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we reserve decision.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Bill,
We
Bill,
do
should
have to modify the
amend the
call.
call.
All right,
Right.
yes. I'll make an application to modify the call from 6 feet to 5 feet for the fence.
Second.
All in favor?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion of reserve decision and give both Mr. Leonard and Ms. Nicolia, if you want to submit on anything or any other photographs, you want to do it next what would be good, 2 weeks? 3 weeks, I mean.
2 weeks is fine. I mean, I personally will rest on the record that I have and just request that I'll get a copy of the photos submitted. I would prefer that the board close the public hearing record this evening.
Okay. So we'll close other than the submissions.
So Leonard, how long would you like for a submission?
So not really close.
Well,
Yeah, so we're not closing.
sort of. Do you think we're going to submit something because Christine Nicole is published, she doesn't want? But we're giving you the option.
Yes, I would like to submit. What is the next date?
Well, we're going to reserve, so there's not going to be a date.
There's not going to be another hearing.
But do you have written submission dates?
Well, we're giving you.
Well,
one.
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Does that work? Okay. And would you favor this being a photo with a copy of it and put the board for? Thank you.
And I respectfully request 10 days to reply to the submission by Mr. Leonard.
How about a week?
7 days?
So why don't we do this?
What do you want,
Why
Mr.
don't we
Nicole?
give the applicant 10 days, and our 62 days won't start until we receive your reply brief or submission.
Okay.
This way, if he takes a little longer, you take a little longer, our 62 days aren't running.
Okay, your 62 days aren't running, but I want to know, when is the opponent's submission
2
date
weeks.
deadline?
2 weeks.
June
2
6th.
weeks. June 6th, okay. That's fine.
And then you'll let us know what you're going to submit after the June 6th submission.
I will contact the board if I need to
And
clarify.
then the 62 days starts after we give.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Reserve 2 weeks for submission. Seconded, I think, Chris.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Application number 767-22, 61 Keelan Court Associates LLC. Permission to erect vacuum sphere having height of 60 feet instead of permitted 18 feet. Industrial 1 District, north side of Keelan Court, 586.36 feet west of Johnson Avenue, Bohemia.
Right here. Give it to Billy.
I'm done speaking.
Good. Good evening, board. My name is Joseph Clemens. Let me know when you're good. Yeah. Good.
You tell him.
Good. My name is Joseph Clemens of German and Clemens Architecture, PC, out of 3275 Veterans Memorial Highway, Suite B11, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779. We're here this evening to talk about a property located at 61 Keelan Court in Bohemia. We were actually before this board back on October 18th of 2022 to discuss this very topic as well. Basically, Basically, what we are requesting is a vacuum sphere to assist the clients with their operations, which they will explain in more detail. The subject property, basically, we have a site plan submission with the engineering department, a couple of different things, but the vacuum sphere was more beneficial to their operation. The property is approximately 1 acre. The existing building there that's now is about 8,000 square feet. And permitted heights within the zone for the main use is 60 feet. And the vacuum sphere that we are proposing, it was indicated at 60 foot, but realistically it actually is 54 feet per the specifications provided, which your board has a record of as
Should
well.
we amend the call of the meeting, Joe? Are you comfortable with that?
Yes. Yes.
So we did notice when we were reviewing the elevations, right?
Mhm.
So the actual requested height is 54 feet, not 60 as reflected in the call of the meeting.
Yes.
Did that change from your first presentation?
Yeah, originally we had called for 60 feet. It was just a roundabout, but comparing to what was previously installed at the other location and comparing to the specification provided, 54 feet is what it should be.
As I recall, because I believe we're incorporating the minutes from the last hearing, other than the 54 instead of 60 feet, it's the same.
Everything else realistically should be the same.
And the issue, remember this, you don't get many vacuum spheres.
Exactly.
The issue was, I know there's another vacuum sphere somewhere else.
Yes.
The issue was, this is in a office-like industrial area.
So is the, to be honest with you, so is the other one. And looking at the satellite image, which is, I think, the second picture within the slide, one shows the statistical location as we are in comparison to them, so you can kind of see roughly where they fall. The second picture shows their actual location and what's surrounded by them. They actually have a daycare center literally adjacent to their property, I believe on the east side, where we are within an industrial park. They're in close proximity to residential district where we don't really have anybody near us. We're within an industrial one zone, and to be honest with you, everything around us is industrial one for quite a bit of ways.
But you're in industrial one.
Yes.
Okay. So really, that's the issue for us. Everything else is incorporated from the first view. We have the minutes.
Mhm.
We'll review them. And if the judgment comes back to 6 feet shorter, and do we want it where it is? And you're saying, sure, because it's very similar, even better than the other one.
Yeah, and I mean, the gentleman here can explain it a little bit better in terms of why they need it for their business, if you want to hear it.
It's all in the record, we get it, it's NASA related, it's for God,
Did you guys have any-
it's all good, we get it, we get Sure.
Were there any questions with regards to safety or any concerns about visibility? We also included some images of the other site, which I used to be part of and I used to run. And so you can actually see the elevation of the same exact sphere and its optics relative to the road.
Just to fill in some of the messages on here last time, especially Mr. McKay, just very briefly, can you tell us the purpose of it again, very briefly
Sure.
again? And then what kind of noise or problems it could cause for neighbors that you would see going forward? Just very brief.
And remember, we're lawyers, not scientists.
Okay, sure. It serves two main functions, two primary functions. One is to simulate the pressure of the atmosphere at very high altitudes. We work in the area of hypersonics, which is one of the DoD's top 3 focus areas, Department of Defense top 3 focus areas. So we need low pressure so that when we run our experiments, it simulates being at very high elevations. The second thing it does is it actually acts as a big muffler because it actually contains the air that we put into it. It contains it in such a way that it doesn't interface with outside air, so it acts as a muffler. So it actually reduces noise and it simulates high altitude. That's what it does. It is not.
As it's operated, does it make noise?
No, it does not make noise.
No noise.
No noise. It's
Correct me
just.
if I'm wrong. The vacuum sphere does not make noise, but the compressor shed in the corner does. If I recall correctly from previous year.
So in order to get a vacuum, you need a vacuum pump, just like a vacuum pump that you would have in your home. You use the vacuum pump to actually remove the air from the tank. You shut the vacuum pump off, you shut the valve off, and now you have a vacuum vessel. And it's when that vacuum pump is running, you will hear a vacuum pump.
And how many decibels is it code compliant?
The vacuum pump is absolutely code compliant, correct.
Just my last question, just again to go back on to what we did last time. Is this for, the experiments you're doing, are they completely for private enterprises, or do you have government contracts, or military things involved?
Pretty much 98% or 99% are government contracts. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of GE Aerospace, and we pretty much do work exclusively for Air Force, Navy, and Office of Secretary of Defense.
So this is mostly government contracted experimentation.
Correct,
Stuff that could go to national security.
correct, absolutely.
Yeah, and just so I wasn't here last time, it has close proximity to the airport. There's no issues with regard to the airport and the height of this.
I think we had that discussion last time, and there were no issues with regards to the height, and it's further away from the airport than the one that's on the west side, which was the site that I previously used to run.
And this is zone industrial 1. Let me just ask one question. What would happen, what would they do if you denied it? How would they do this, i.e. bathroom?
We would move.
You would what, I'm sorry?
We would move.
You move.
Wherever we can,
Wherever you want.
wherever we want it. So,
We want it. It's America.
so it all lies in your hands.
All right.
So your whole business.
And move to incorporate
Location
the
relies
record.
on
All right.
just being there for you to continue with the government contracts and everything.
We would be severely restrained from continuing to doing, we've been making a lot of advancements in generating the next technology. We know right now that the Russians and the Chinese are,
Yeah, listen.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So we are making a lot of strides, but in order to execute what we need to execute for the DoD, we really need this capability.
What type of, in your immediate area, what type of industrial buildings or uses go on?
So right across the street from us, there's a gentleman that does testing for, and has a breakdown dynamometer. They do have a pretty large air supply in the back of their building, and they do pretty loud tests. We've got a tool and die company next to us. And on the other side, which we also currently occupy 50% roughly of 81 Keeland, in the front end of the building. The back end of that building is a kind of a woodworking machine shop with a 45-foot dust collector that's in the back as well. I don't know, who else would you say? Are there some machine shops in the area as well?
Isn't it town resource recovery over there?
Not behind us, but on the Keelan Road, there's a bagel factory on the corner.
What is it gonna look like? In my mind, I'm thinking like.
There's a picture, there's a picture. And
I didn't get one package. I must have put that here.
There's the second to the last page, I think, shows a picture of,
I see.
and by the way, the exact same specifications. When NASA built that in the mid to late 80s, we called Chicago Bridge and Iron, which is now McDermott, to get us those exact plans.
Why did you make it 6 feet shorter? Was this 6
No,
feet
it's
just outside
it's
there?
exactly the same height as that one.
No, but the original application was 6 feet.
I think we just was, not, it was a roundabout ballpark, yeah.
Netherlands to English.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, further questions? Would anyone like to be heard? Can you step up, give your name and address?
Good evening. My name is Bill Kassam. I reside at 75 The Helm, East Islip, New York. I am the property owner of 5 buildings on that block, totaling some 110,000 square feet of space. The objection I have is that this is just in the wrong area. I mean, I have no problem if it's in a heavy industrial area. There are plenty of properties around that, would be more suitable for it than this. This, I have quiet neighbors around there doing a lot of things. The machine shop is not a machine shop that's next to me at Blue Point Tool, by the way. All they do is distribute. The other one is a party rental next to them. And I have several tenants, and there is no noise in that neighborhood. My objection is that I just don't think it belongs in the A1 industrial. Every building on that property, the block rather, not the property, is 18 to 20 feet. This is 60 foot. I've looked at the pictures and, I understand what they're saying here, and I don't want to really hinder their business, but I really think that it's in the wrong location for this application. I think it's just going to detract from our properties. And like I said, I have a very, very large vested interest on that block.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to be heard? First, let's make a motion to amend the call.
First, I'll start with a motion to amend the call, yes. And then I'll also make a motion to incorporate the minutes from the first hearing.
I guess all in favor of both
Aye.
applications? Aye. Let the record reflect that I recuse myself from this.
And I'll make the final motion to grant the application.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm in that second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you,
Application's
gentlemen.
approved.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Look at you, you're not going to get any Uncle Sam.
All right, everybody, stay put a bit.
What are we gonna, are we,
No, no, not
we're
yet.
reserved, right? I don't know. It's a question that it's not clear.
Site distance violation?
I always was in a position that we didn't have the authority.
I
And then I
want
found that out
to.
great.
I'm really-
All she has to do is take 2 feet.
Yes, we do. We have a couple of things.
Well, I also think.
Everybody's dying to talk, but we have a couple of things. So we have just 12 accessory apartments to renew tonight for a period of 3 years. We have a motion and a second to renew those.
She's not.
I'm sure.
Okay, and let's get through these really quickly. Press those down, please. Natasha needs one. Would you mind passing one? Oh, Chris got her. Okay.
Go play it at the airport.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're in? Or maybe I didn't give you one. Okay, great. Here, Shanita, you can follow along. Okay. 3 previously reserved decisions to read into the record. Application number 227-23, Robert and Rita Wilson. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated May 23, 2023, the application to establish the accessory apartment not having the required off-street parking is denied without prejudice toward the applicants reapplying should a complying driveway alternative be provided. On motion of
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
application number 233-23, AJ Shah and Rekha Shah. In accordance with a proposed written decision dated May 23rd, 2023, the application is denied in terms of the interpretation as to whether a floral design as a home occupation is consistent with the town code. On motion of, all in favor? Mr. Italiano recusing. Application number 229-23, Berland and Joanne Abrams. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated May 23rd, 2023, the application is granted. On motion of,
Second. All in favor?
okay. Thank you, Anthony.
We want to discuss this one last week.